So first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. And just so you are aware, once again, my name is Holly Gerlach. I have the privilege of being a solution architect for LEGO Education. I do have some of my wonderful colleagues who are going to be joining us. They will be monitoring the chat. So feel free as we continue on if you have any specific questions. Go ahead and add them in there. Otherwise, hopefully we'll be able to give you some really relevant and great information as we continue on. So welcome. The whole entire reason that you are here today is we are going to be discussing funding opportunities for potentially bringing LEGO Education solutions and programming to your school and or district, depending on where you are and what you cover. So a little bit about us, just to level set our conversation so you know who we are and exactly what it is that we do. So we at LEGO Education, a lot of the times we do get asked that question. LEGO Education, wonderful. I've heard of LEGO, but what is LEGO Education? What do you all do? So yes, we do have the great privilege of being part of the LEGO group, so that larger umbrella, if you will, which we do sit under. However, we have a very different kind of focus and premise versus our retail colleagues, although we very much love and enjoy our retail colleagues. Our whole intention is how can we utilize LEGO bricks and elements in an educational capacity? So our whole premise and focus is how do we take what has iconically been known as a toy and how do we really transition it over to a teaching and learning tool that can be utilized in educational spaces. So our premise and kind of our focus is different, but we sit amongst you as fellow educators, as colleagues, because a lot of us do work and come from this space, myself included. So looking at our LEGO bricks and elements, how can they be utilized in those education spaces? We often get asked that question. So, something starts. So in an ideal situation, we would have been in person and you would have actually gotten to see and experience all of our bricks. However, because of course we are in a virtual capacity, we are giving you kind of that just quick snippet and overview of some of those different learning opportunities that do actually happen within the construct of our classroom or educational spaces, depending on what that looks like. So let's further dive into some of those things that we just saw in that video. So how do we put all these things together? That's one of the things that we really keep in top of mind of how do we actually create this and what does that really look like for us? So we kind of joke around and we say we are going to build because of course we are the builders over here at LEGO Education, but what does that actual success outcome look like for us? Well, first of all, first and foremost, we start with those academic standards. We know that's kind of the North Star for us in schools and districts. So how do we really look at what it is that we're actually trying to teach and what we have to teach in our relevant spaces, according whether it's our state standards, whether it's course codes, whatever it may be, that kind of is that guiding principle for you specifically. So then once we take that information, it's really about how do we leverage the novelty and engagement that come from our bricks themselves. So even though we can't change specifically what it is that we have to teach, we do have that ability to look at different options and resources for how we can teach these things. And then ultimately, when we put those two together, we really hone in on those learning outcomes. What is it that our students need to know and be able to demonstrate? So really looking at those key elements and components, as a part of a successful framework is really kind of, like I said, our guiding principle for what it is that we do and what we intend to do through our LEGO Education programs. So what do those actually look like? There's many different options, and I will just go ahead and preface and say, in the short time that we are together, I will not have time to go through every single piece. However, We are going to send follow-up information. More so, all of you will have a designated key account manager who can really walk through a lot of these specifics that I'm going to mention, and then also even discuss things that are not necessarily present in this presentation today. But we're going to hone in on these areas of synergy, specifically looking at early learning, so things that we can support our youngest learners with. Looking at this idea of STEAM learning, depending on your space, it may be STEM learning or STEAM learning, depending on which one acronym you utilize in your relative space. And then last but not least, also looking a little bit at the realm of computer science. So within these, of course, we do have our different sets, which we're going to look at in a very broad overview. So looking at our physical materials themselves. So early learning has a lot of different sets. The biggest thing to notate about these is they are Duplo-based bricks. So meaning they are those larger bricks than our traditional system brick. So they're going to be best suited for our younger learners. And there's going to be a lot of different options within this, whether you really want to focus in on STEAM concepts, whether it is you want to get into that beginning foundation of computational thinking, whether you want to look at more of that literacy aspect with either story tales or letters, or even science concepts, or even getting into some social studies and social and emotional concepts with some of our other ones. So really just depending on what it is that you're looking to do, our early learning sets provided this amazing play-based experience that is not only going to be fun and engaging, but also academically relevant. Then looking at some of our possibilities for STEAM specifically, you will see on that we have our STEAM Perk set, we have Creative Brick sets, and then we also have BrickQ Motion Essential and Prime, depending on grade levels. One is more suitable for elementary versus the other is going to be more suitable for secondary. So these sets are all going to afford non-tech options or no digital aspect needed. It is just going to be a purely hands-on solution presented here. Whereas on the flip side of things, then we have our computer science offerings. So these are going to be tech enabled or have a digital component to them. And there is a coding progression that is going to be reflected throughout all of our solutions, starting all the way down with our youngest learners, with our physical computing, with our Coding Express blocks, all the way through our secondary sets with Spike Prime specifically, all the way up to text-based programming utilizing Python. So if you have your phone readily available, or if it's out by you, if you are absolutely chomping at the bit and you would like to explore a lot of our learning content, you can actually scan that QR code that is popping up on your screen now. For whatever reason, if you do not have your phone or you don't have the ability to scan that QR code, do not worry. We will be sending a follow-up that will have all of this information, including the links to the learning content that is going to be displayed there. However, like I said, this will take you over to our community page where you will find not only our lessons and units, you'll find different types of activities, as well as different learning progressions, standards alignments, all different kinds of things. So definitely recommend you check it out just to get a preview of that. However, like I said, for whatever reason, if you are unable to view it at this exact moment, do not worry. We will be sending that out at a later moment in time. Otherwise, we'll continue on. So of course, the main reason why obviously you are here and that you are wanting to learn more. So what type of funding opportunities are available? I will go ahead and once again preface this conversation that these are specific to the US. So specifically in the United States are the funding opportunities we are going to be calling out. If you are one of our international friends, there are other LEGO education representatives that will be able to help you. So we will make sure that you have that point of contact. However, like I said, very specific to the US. And there also is going to be some delineation about the funding types that we do speak to this afternoon. Some of them are going to be much more focused in on federal funding opportunities. So if you are working from a district office or a central office and you have the ability to kind of have more of a district level conversation, there's going to be funding sources that are very much relevant to you, opposed to if you are a teacher or even a school-based employee employee, that is going to be a different conversation, which we will also highlight as we go through. And then there is always this opportunities for different discretionary grants and things of that nature, which we also try to keep most up to date as possible, especially knowing that there's a lot of different things happening depending on what state and or region that you are working in. The good news is, like I mentioned, we do have key account managers and representative that do cover all throughout the United States. So everybody will have a designated rep that can assist them if they have some more specific needs beyond any of the information that we cover today. So looking at a couple of these things together. So the first one coming up is going to be specifically, it is a federal funding opportunity. However, this is something that school-based administrators, as well as potentially, if you are aware, Title I Part A, so specifically looking at Title I schools, we have worked alongside numerous schools and districts as they have looked to fund their programs, specifically with Title I funding. So not only have we been able to cover the actual materials going into maker spaces or STEM labs, media centers, or even integrating into core content areas, so the sets themselves, but also the PD. So Title I Part A really does have kind of a broader reach depending on, like I said, those allowables within your districts and how your Title I programming is kind of conducted within your space. But if you are a Title I school, that is absolutely an opportunity that you may want to look at and explore, and not just even in the construct of what we can do with the materials or the professional learning that accompanies it, but also on the sense of the idea around family engagement. We do have the opportunity to actually support family engagement opportunities at the school site, whether it is just helping you to plan out those opportunities or even to actually lead them with one of our LEA trainers. So like I said, there is different opportunities for that as it relates on the level of support that you may possibly need, or also looking at the type of materials. So we do actually have some different materials that really can be beneficial when we're talking about take-home learning materials. That slide right there will actually display our personal learning kit. It's actually something that does intend to kind of break down those walls and have that classroom learning extend beyond. So that's another kind of add-on opportunity that we do have the ability to support if that is of interest. So like I said, if you are a Title I school and you have those funds available, or you're really looking around this family engagement aspect, those may be plausible opportunities for you to look at and to connect with your key account manager on how they can support you with that conversation further. So moving on, these ones are going to be a little bit more about specifically looking at federal funding opportunities, so more something at the district level. So looking at this idea of Title II, specifically around professional development, we do have the ability to offer face-to-face professional development. We can do that virtually as well. So we also have the ability to do virtual sessions, as well as we can even come and support teachers through job embedded coaching. So those models can look very, very different, just depending on what you want that to look like. And it just really depends on what it is that the need requires, but how we can work alongside of you to ensure that your teachers' outcomes are also met within the construct of that. So then this next one going on is going to be Title IV. So once again, a federal funding opportunity, typically housed more at the central office, if you will. However, depending on your specific instance, you may have access to some of these funds depending on how they're leveraged within your school district. So Title IV Part A and then Title IV Part B, there's two parts to this. The easiest way to kind of delineate between the two, Part A is intended for in-school usage, whereas Title IV Part B is going to be those out-of-school, non-school hours. So whether that's before school, could be after school, just depends on how your district sets that up and how they would like to run it. So specifically with Title IV Part A, those monies, we partnered with different schools and districts to actually bring STEM education to different school sites, as well as supporting that digital literacy and technology literacy through our different digital options, as well as just really thinking about what other well-rounded educational opportunities we can provide to school sites based on those needs and assessments and really what it is that they're trying to accomplish within that specific grant. Then flipping to the other one, if you are a 21st Century Community Learning Center, so if that sounds familiar, that means you actually receive monies for Title IV Part B. We actually have great opportunities, once again, for resources to support after-school learning programs in really meaningful ways to reinforce those standards that you're trying to teach, or even just really think of innovative and creative ways to support student learning through different opportunities, depending on what it is that you're attempting to focus on. So like I said, if any of those kind of sound familiar, or it is something that you are interested in learning more about, by all means, like I said, this is something that we will have a follow-up and we'll be able to connect more about. So moving on to some more federal opportunities. So if you have CTE or CTAE programs, so specifically thinking about our career and technical education, we do have a wide variety of solutions that do support a different variety of pathways within that space for our secondary students. We do have the ability to not only support that conversation, not only in middle school, but of course high school. And we've actually had some really innovative districts actually think about and consider how they can actually even bring that down to their elementary grades to actually serve as a pipeline and a feeder opportunity to really build out those CTAE programs. So just really depending on kind of what is the focus area, what is it that they're trying to attempt to do, whether it's career exploration, whether it's actually being embedded into an existing course, or even actually being a course itself. So we do have a lot of flexibility. We do actually have different courses for our secondary students. That is another thing that we would be happy and excited to share more with you if that is of interest as it relates to different areas where we do have the ability to support that type of coursework, whether it's in engineering, robotics, computer science, information technology, just really depending on what that actually is and what that looks like. So like I said, Perkins funding, if there is availability, if you actually have some designation over how those programs are funded, we would welcome and invite you to have a conversation with us about that. Then flipping, another kind of opposite end of the spectrum, if you will, going down to some of our youngest learners. Once again, those Duplo sets, they just pose a really great and wonderful opportunity to support our youngest learners. So we have worked along Head Start and different early childhood providers, as well as thinking about even IDEA monies with our ESE pre-Ks. So just really depending, like I said, once again, what it is that you're trying to accomplish, because our entire premise is we want to hear what it is that you are trying to do, and we want to find those areas of synergy where potentially our solutions and our programs can support the intended learning outcomes that you are wanting to do. So then the big one on the table that a lot of times people have been talking about more recently, and this one, of course, is not a forever funding source, but I do like to mention it just because people have used it over the past couple of years. So ESSER funding, specifically because of COVID-19, of course, we should be familiar that we do have those CARES as well as ESSER specifically being that allocation provided to schools throughout the United States for that recovery and learning loss and so forth and so on, as well as that extended learning aspect, depending on where you are, or even summer learning that's set aside. So people have utilized ESSER funding for a variety of different things, just because in that in this funding bucket, if you will, there is a vast opportunity of how people can leverage those different types of allocations. So it is something, like I said, if you are at central office, or is that something that you have some sort of leverage over, that you can weigh in on opportunities for that. People have used ESSER funding to support a myriad of different programming, like I said, in those areas of STEAM, specific emphasis on whether it's been science, whether it's been math, technology, summer programming, so forth and so on. Also, as well as extended learning, just really lots of different opportunities based on what it is that have been included in those statewide plans. So if that is something that resonates with you and it is something that is applicable to you, we would absolutely recommend that you connect with your key account manager so you can have more personalized conversations on what that might look like. Otherwise, like I said, this is a small window, but we like to highlight just a couple of more localized funding opportunities. So all of these ones that you'll actually see on here, these are going to be very specifically for a teacher. So actually looking at a teacher capacity, and there are links in here. So we will make sure that we share some of these out. And like I said, this is just a small sampling, obviously not indicative of the entire United States. However, that is something that we do have the ability to do, and we would love to support you alongside that conversation to really look on more of a local aspect of what are some more personalized funding opportunities that may be applicable to you as an individual teacher, or maybe even a site-based personnel who would still love to look for funding opportunities that could really add to your school site and kind of your overall programming. So these ones are just a small glimpse of some of the things that are absolutely possible. And these ones that have been selected are not just simply for the equipment or the materials itself, but some of them actually include both equipment and professional development as part of that. Some of it is going to just be the materials itself. It just really depends, like I said, on who's kind of the sponsor of that program. But our entire premise is how can we help you find these opportunities that are plausible for you to look for additional funding opportunities to bring LEGO Education Solutions to your school building. And like I said, if it's a district-wide conversation, a little bit of a different conversation, but there are plausible opportunities that are out there. And with everything changing rapidly in the funding landscape, we try to keep on top of this as much as possible. But like I said, given that all of you do have a key account manager as well as a solution architect that can support you in that conversation, our whole premise is to make sure that we kind of can have a relevant and meaningful conversation that can help you to find these different opportunities that are going to afford you these funds and potential grants that can get you those LEGO education materials, as well as those different just opportunities for you to further explore. So once again, I know that was a lot of different information, but kind of in closing, we really wanted to make sure that we give you this idea around what these things could be. So the beauty of LEGO education sets, if you are not familiar, is they are non-consumable. That means really and truly as you invest into the sets themselves, I always joke and say if you've ever stepped on a Lego brick, you already know they're indestructible. They typically cannot be broken, but for whatever reason, if something were to be faulty, we have an amazing customer service team that could, of course, help you if anything were faulty for whatever reason. But outside of that, really thinking about it is the investment into the actual physical sets themselves. But then once you have the sets and then you're able to support that with that professional learning, they really do have a hard and a fast return on investment because they can be utilized in different places and spaces, whether that is being actually integrated into core subject areas, whether you're using it to reinforce science concepts or to pull out mathematical concepts or to actually teach computer science. There's a lot of different use cases and a lot of different places where we've had great success all throughout the United States that we would love to not only share with you, but also really just afford you different technical assistance on what this might look like, whether, like I said, it is happening in the construct of that instructional day, actually being integrated into a core subject, or whether maybe it is a standalone as a robotics class, a CTAE class, whatever it may look like, or even if it's happening in the construct of after out of school hours, whether it's an after school program, whether it's summer learning, extended learning, whatever it is, those sets that we're referencing, they do have a lot of utility and can be used in different places and spaces. So they do have a great return on investment. Once you actually have acquired the sets themselves, a lot of different things can actually be accomplished with them. Otherwise, like I said, we thank you for your time and energy. One of the things you can expect from us is we will be sending a follow-up. So not only will you receive a follow-up to this about this information, but you will also be put into contact with who actually is your key account manager. If you missed part of the webinar, or even if you came in late, no worries. We will also have the recording available so that you can listen through this again and that we can help you however is most suitable for your needs. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all of you, and we will be in touch shortly.